Welcome to Style Meets Sustainability, the podcast where fashion, ethics, and conscious living come together. I'm Arpita, your host. Today's guest is someone whose words have long shaped the way we think about fashion, not just what we wear, but how we engage with the entire industry. Richa Bansal is the co founder and managing editor of TextFash.com, a digital publication that blends hard hitting journalism with academic depth, spotlighting what truly matters in the global textile apparel fashion landscape. With 30 years in the media industry and a strong focus on fashion over the last 2 decades, Richa brings insight, clarity, and a deep commitment to truth and transparency. Let's dive in. Hi, Richa. Thank you so much for being here. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Hi to all your viewers, to all our viewers.
Thank
I
you.
hope we have an interesting conversation. I've been looking forward to it too.
Let's start from the beginning. Can you share your journey into the world of fashion media and how that eventually led to textfash.com?
Okay, let me get to the very beginning. I was in Guwahati. Guwahati is much better, well known now than it was when we had moved to Guwahati, when my father got transferred and we moved to Guwahati. We were told, do not go there. It's, literally wild animals roam around wildly in that place. My father dismissed everything. A new place beckoned him, I believe, and we came here. And yes, where we were staying, I have very faint memories where in the back we were on a hillside, our little Assam type house. No, it was an RCC building, flat. And there was actually a tiger that came onto the badminton court behind our house. And I remember that silhouette very, very distinctly. I've written about it somewhere in some of my writings. But to cut a long story short, is when I started in a local newspaper there. The local newspaper called the Sentinel. I was there, and within 3 months, I think I found myself heading their magazine division because a new newspaper had come into town, and the entire senior team had moved there. So here was I, 2 months old, just having appeared for my graduation, finally a graduation last paper. 15 days I'm in this place, and in this newspaper, local newspaper. And 2 months down the line, the magazine, the Sunday and Saturday supplements were literally my babies. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would go hunting for stories. Thursday, Friday, first half. Thursday, I would sit down and write the story. Friday, I think we made the paper for we used to work 2 weeks in advance. So we used to make the Sunday supplement. That was Thursday. And Friday, we would do Saturday's paper, 4 pages. So it was literally baptism by fire, but it helped a lot. And then, to cut a very long story short, again, I joined another newspaper. And then, when I was doing my master's, in between my master's, I joined PTI. Press Trust of India used to be India's premier magazine. And I think among the first stories that I wrote on fashion was about how modeling has come of age, because when we started out, modeling was not a career that was looked upon as something which is very respectable. And I remember I was in Calcutta and I did a story. There was a local brand called Pitambari, and they had done a fashion show. The models who ruled the roost then, I don't think after that generation we've got very many iconic models. So there was Milind Soman, Aishwarya Rai, Meher Jaisia, the likes of these people. They were the ones who were modeling, and I spoke to a whole lot of them. Milind Soman was the one who took me to Meher Jaisia and all these people. And when I did that story for PTA, I think it was picked up by 8, 10 newspapers. That was my first formal, maybe tryst with fashion writing, so to say. Thereafter, I was with Times of India, Times Internet. I remember we made a microsite for the first fashion week, covered the fashion weeks, put out stories for the microsite. In the green room, models dressing up. I don't even have those clippings now, but it was interesting. The FDCI, Lakme Fashion Week, Divide, and a whole lot of things. It was very interesting. Those were interesting times, yes. Fashion was just about beginning to emerge. B2B, so to say, was beginning to kind of find a voice somewhere. It was being spoken of. It was just kind of beginning to find mention. And then while I was with TOI, is when I joined Business of Fashion. I remember seeing that magazine. It was a rough hewn diamond, is what came to my mind because the information was there in that magazine, but it was definitely not the way content should be. So I went there and I joined as executive editor and turned the entire magazine around. And I had a blast doing that, from features to write ups to news, everything to design. Everything saw a huge change, and that magazine, I think, found its place in the sun. How it should be. I remember going to fashion weeks, and obviously we were given the back rows. Definitely not first. It was always fourth, fifth. Although I don't know why should there be an hierarchy that okay, front row is for these people, second row is for that people. But that's how it has emerged. Where fashion is headed today. When you talk about sustainability, transparency, climate crisis, that's a huge percentage of which is attributed to fashion. I think all of that we started talking about much, much later. Although the talk for fashion, being accountable for its footprint, it began sometime in maybe in, I think in 1972. It did not really go as mainstream as it is today. And I remember having a word with FDCI, and I said, there's the B2B fashion magazines that really can make an impact, how the fashion industry needs to grow. But okay, that was then. And thereafter, so I was with Business of Fashion, Images Business of Fashion, which is Delhi based. Then within that same group, I took over, Sportswear International, which has since been rechristened some years back as the spin-off. So I launched the India edition, and then I turned around Shoes and Accessories, and then I joined Fiber to Fashion, turned that around. So after having traveled so much, and then COVID happened, of course, where everything saw cuts and everything. And to cut again a very long story short, TechSplash was there at the back of my mind for a very, very long time. Whole lot of ideation had been going on, a whole lot of talk had been going on with various people. And finally, it was just the two of us, the two co-founders, who finally managed to find common ground, and we said okay, let's just kind of go ahead, because you need to be focused on your mission, you need to be focused on the vision. Since we found ourselves on the same page, we decided okay, let's go ahead, set up textfash.com. So from forever being working to entrepreneurship, it's been a long journey. It's been interesting. It's been full of challenges. I think every day, from having huge teams to being the team, from peon to sub editor to intern to trainee editor to executive editor to managing editor to transcriber. You just have to do everything. I think I've done everything and more that I may not have done across my entire career. If there's one institution that needs to be thanked for the grounding that one has in this field, is I think is PTI, because that's where we learned. You were thrown into the deep end, and you would learn how to edit, how to write, how to rewrite, how to turn around a copy. As to coming to the last part of what text fash is covering, as you've seen that when we cover fashion in text fash, it's not just about a brand, it's not just about retail. It's a very focused area that we look at, and that is sustainability, where it is pro people, pro planet, because I think we cannot afford to go in any other direction but to keep the planet and people at center stage. So that is how TextFash came about. It's an ongoing journey. We are still at it. We're still working to see that it cuts through the chase, it cuts through all the noise that's there about sustainability, about greenwashing, about all this, pro planet and all of that. So we are trying to do that. a drop in a huge ocean, but I believe every drop counts.
That's an inspiring journey you had. And when you mentioned about the models and the backstage and green rooms and everything, I remembered my past where I was doing all the dressing up the models because I
Uh,
was designing the clothes and
yeah.
helping my seniors with the clothes and backstage everything. So you made me remember some models there as well. And I had one question here. You slightly mentioned that you used to get the back seats. So, do you still go to these kind of events, or what is
The
the now?
I haven't been to a fashion show in ages, and I do not get invites to fashion shows. They stopped coming a long time back. Not that I have, I would be able to attend them. I'm hardly in Delhi these days because I keep traveling a lot. And I think even if I were to go to fashion shows, I'm sure I'll not be getting the front row because mine is it's a B2B publication. It's a digital publication. So what if the content is niche? So what the content is bests a whole lot of other content. And I say that with huge confidence, with huge pride. I say that, but the kind of focus that we bring to the table. No, if you think that I'll still be able to get the front row for whatever that hierarchy means, no, I will not. It will definitely be the second row or the third row. Who knows? Maybe even the last row. But then that's fine. And I'll. There was an interview that I took a long time back of one of those pioneers of modern retail in India when he told me, Richa, let me tell you, get one thing straight. Fashion in India is definitely not happening at the fashion weeks. And yes, I agree with him. In India, fashion weeks are all glamour. Fashion needs to move beyond the glamour. The glamour is just what you see on the front. It's like for a human being. It's what's inside that makes a human being. It's what's inside. What makes fashion is what makes fashion what it truly is. And if along the same veins, along the same line, if you go back to what fashion was, I keep harking back to our heritage weaves, our crafts, and all of that. We need to preserve all of that. Each and every step then was planet friendly. We were weaving the cloth, we were dyeing the cloth, we were stitching the cloth. Everything was, we were making use of scraps of material. We were making use of old clothes. We were making use of we were not throwing away anything. The use and throw concept was never there in India. It was always recycle, recycle, recycle till it can be recycled no more. Coming back to your question, where you said about whether you think I'll get the first row, no, it does not, and it does not matter because I think I've reached a stage, or rather, we have reached a stage where it does not matter. I think we just need to be aligned to what needs to be written about. I think that is more critical.
As you were saying all these things, I have some thoughts going through my head. So let me put them one by one out. The first thought was when you said you decided to do this sustainability side for Tex Fash. What made you go through all that? Because you worked with these fashion shows and you said sportswear, accessories. You did so many things, and how come you moved towards sustainability? You already mentioned a little bit of your ethics and mindset behind it. I want to go a little deeper into it, and I want to understand what went behind all this to get to text fash.
When I started, when I stepped into B2B fashion journalism, one of the first conferences that I had attended, the focus was, the mobile phones had just begun dominating our lives. The mobile phone had sliced away a huge part of the consumer spend from fashion. It had moved on to the newfangled mobile phone then. So people did not, brandishing a new phone with they were those clunky huge things, ugly looking things, but they were almost like a status symbol. Whenever a new Nokia would come out with its new version, and people were dashing to buy it. And there was this huge conference where the talk was driven towards consumption. That talk was driven towards how can we accrue more profits for fashion retailers, for the business of fashion. Although, as I said, 1972 is when I think one of the first few calls were made to protect the planet. It was a global environment summit that had taken place to address the environmental challenges, and it was not just related to fashion. It was, I think, related across industries. And then uh, you started having these policies and all of that. But what I'm talking about is 2002, 2003, 2004 is when the story was more consumption related. How do you get a larger slice of the consumer's wallet, for spends on fashion? That was how to get that back. What can fashion do to get back that part of the consumer's wallet? That was the story there. Then I think it was, as then we had, I think, the Basel Convention happened, and which was, I think, if I'm not wrong, I think 1989. And then thereafter, it was in 1992 that we had the UNFCCC, and then we had the Kyoto Protocol in 1977. And so
Mm.
all these things had started. They had already started making some noise, but obviously, we in India, we were still not conscious about that in a big way. I think it was only after Paris Agreement, I think in 2015, is when the industry started kind of consciously started being cognizant of the fact that, we need to be planet friendly. And I remember a couple of years back, I was talking to somebody, and he said, he had applied for some award, the city sustainable fashion awards. And when I was having this conversation, he says, Richa, we've been planet friendly since the time of my grandfather, because we have been taking old clothes from wherever they could come to us. We had our own system of collecting them, and there was no formal means of collection. Whatever my grandfather had started, my father had done, I was carrying on with it, and we were repurposing old garments into something new. We were kind of separating the fibers, the threads, and first the fabric, then sorting them out according to the fiber, and then reweaving them, blending it with something else. Maybe that may not have been as eco-friendly as, say, any other yarn that you get today. But they have been they have been doing it for more than 30, 40 years. They've been doing that. When you talk of sustainability, I think it came to the conscious to people's consciousness, or even the industry's consciousness, say, I think as recent as a decade back. Whenever I was writing my stories on fashion, whenever I was talking to people, this question was always there, that, this sustainability had started making its presence felt. It was no longer a term that people had not heard of. The industry was beginning to talk about it. So there was this player in Surat who took me to his factory where he had planted a whole lot of green trees. He was using a whole lot of solar panels. He had improvised on how, he had created the Jugaru system that we all have. He had created a mechanism wherein, when this how to capture the steam and repurpose the steam for some other work in his factory for dyeing and all of that. So I remember seeing all of that. This was more than 10 years back. So it's like people had begun to take these small steps. People had begun to talk about it, say around more consciously about 10 years back, 2025 we are to 2015, huh? So around that time. Now it's like into a stream of consciousness almost. So as a consumer, I don't think people are still buying Shein. People still want to buy, buy the T-shirt which is the cheapest and will you can use and throw. And then again, I remember a brand when it had come into India. I remember buying those T-shirts and them lasting forever. And you compare them with the T-shirts that you buy today; they are like two wash and go. Similarly for footwear, and then again, I remember talking to a footwear brand which has since been sold off, and I told him that, but your footwear doesn't last too long. It's like it's barely about you wear for 4 or 5 times and something or the other gives way. He says, Richa, but that's what we are doing. We are fast fashion. There was pride when he said, we are fast fashion. We want people don't want to keep things forever. People want to wear, people want to use and throw. So as I said, this was more than 10 years back, about 10 years back. People want to use and throw. Now I think people are realizing, are beginning to realize. We've had those ads, we've had those little conversations where we talk about water consumption. Do not, the beginning, earliest message of sustainability, if I were to recall as a kid, I think was of not keeping your tap running when you're brushing your teeth. I think there was something on Doordarshan, I don't remember. Then gradually this, it kind of, pay saving out power. Okay, that was so that you don't run up a huge electricity bill. But still, each of these things they counted. And today, where we are telling consumers also, we are asking consumers also whether, how sustainable they are. It's interesting that people have, people have kind of started talking about sustainability now. So, yes, we've come a long way since when fashion was just about wearing good clothes, dressing up well, and all of that. And so things have changed for the better, but I think it's the journey ahead is still a long way to go, and we'll take time. It has to be done at an individual level. It has to be done at a societal level. It has to be done at the government level, policy level. So there are it is when it has to be collaborative effort. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And the way you are answering and the way you are sharing your thoughts, you are giving me more my memories. Like you were mentioning 2002, 3 as a timeline where everything started. This they wanted to grab the wallets of customer. That is when I entered fashion industry. I just finished my studies. So
Yeah.
and then you mentioned 10 years ago, like 2015, around that time, I just started my YouTube channel where I was talking everything possible about fast fashion without even knowing it is fast fashion.
Exactly.
I was just talking about fashion.
That is what all of us were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like 10 years ago, I started that, and later, like last 7 to 8 years, I realized the need of sustainability, talking about sustainability. So, I moved towards this and I started completely
Which
doing
year did
all.
you say? Which year did you say?
About what? YouTube or
That we started talking about sustainability?
like 7 to 8 years ago?
Hmm.
7 to 8 years,
Yes.
like maybe 2019, 17. I don't know the numbers, but yeah,
Uh-huh,
you can
uh-huh.
me to say
Around that
seven.
time, yeah. That's
Around.
when it came into, as I said, it into a stream of consciousness. People started talking about it, at least at the industry level.
Yes, yes. Coming to the thoughts which I was mentioning earlier, The second thought I want to ask you now, you
Mhm.
were mentioning about how we used to have all eco-friendly materials and clothes earlier, like older generations. But now things have taken completely different direction. What shifts have you noticed over the years when it comes to how fashion is being talked about in the media?
When you come to about fashion being talked about, how it is talked about in the media, it has always been the glamour part of it that that has got that has been written about. It was never about the weaver. It was never about the dyer. It was never about the pattern guy who's cutting the patterns. It was never about the man or woman who stitches, does, the tailor. And I'm speaking, I am deliberately using words which are part of of the lay person's vocabulary. I'm not using technical terms. So when fashion was being written about, it was always about no harm in that. Very good. They had the talent. They needed to be written about. Otherwise, we would not have had we would not have had a Rohit Bal. We would not have had the Tarun Tahiliani, or we would not have had these names. But fashion is not entirely, it is not about, as I said earlier, it is not about designer wear at all. We are still not, when you're talking about coverage of fashion, if you try and remember the news items, or even the weekly supplements, or say for instance the daily supplements which were marketed as the glitz and the glamour of every city and town. What did you read? It was always about such and such a fashion show. Okay, even when the coverage was about a fashion week, what was the coverage about? It was always about the designer. It was always about what the models wore. It was always about the skimpiest of dresses that made it to the ramp. So coverage of fashion, I think, in mainstream media, uh, it has improved a lot, but I think it still has miles to go. For instance, if you talk in media terms, if you are in a newspaper, or if you are in a news agency, it is not the textile beat. It is always the fashion beat. It is, and the fashion beat is never given to anyone senior. It is always a fresher who's getting it. Then that person grows into that beat. That's a different thing. That's how it happened. Uh, More recently, say about 8 to 10 years back. But before that, no, fashion was never considered a serious enough subject matter to be written about. I think that's the shift that we are seeing today. I'm glad it's not being covered that way. That's why there was a scope for textfash.com. There was scope for those magazines which I had worked in earlier, but that's where textfash.com came in, and that is why we chose the sustainability niche. You know, as I said, cutting out a whole lot of other noise that was there. We said let's focus on sustainability, because going forward, 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, sustainability is going to do the talking, no matter where you are, which industry you are in. It is you have to be sustainable. And so we decided that we must, and we don't, so we decided that, okay, we need to uh, move in that direction, help the industry move in that direction. So that's where we are today.
I strongly feel that you filled the gap where everybody need to know about sustainability. You took up that as textfash.com. So when we come to textfash.com, it takes a very research based, transparent approach. Why was that important to you and your team?
When you're writing business to business, the focus has to be razor sharp. When we decided on textfash.com, I think it's not that there was nothing being done on sustainability before. In my earlier organization, I had brought out, I think, two compendiums on sustainability. But I realized that what people are talking about really sustainability, a lot of it can also be, could also have been simply greenwashing. It is not always that one can go and check or make sure that what one is writing about is that it is entirely pro planet, that there is no there is no washing being done there. Research is data. uh, and research is also what gives you an insight into what exactly the issue is. What are we trying to write about? Why are we trying to cover a particular subject? When you do a deep dive, when you are looking at any issue, it is important uh, that you get into its depths to understand what lies at the core of a particular issue. Because until and unless you are able to do that, you'll not be able to write what needs to be written. Research is critical, and when I talk of research, I will talk to you about what we did very recently. Is about the It's the first ever research that anybody would have done in India, perhaps in India at least. It's the Young India Fashion Survey 2025. The survey is about the clothing habits, the sustainability choices, and the style influences of the youth. And we looked at youth in the 18 to 35 age bracket. How do they consume fashion? How do they dispose fashion? What are their fashion influences? What is it that drives them to buy a particular product? What is it? Say, is it price? Is it fit? Is it size? How do they discard fashion? So this was a very very comprehensive research that we did. And we wanted to know, if you look at India, second-hand fashion is a huge taboo, has been a huge taboo in India. It's I can speak for myself. If I'm honest, very honest about it, I would not go and buy. So 5 years back, maybe even, yeah, 5 years back, as recent as 5 years back, I don't think I would have gone and bought a second-hand product from a shop. Today, if you tell me, I wouldn't mind going and buying. But I have been, having said that, I think, I have been sustainable. I have been I'm a very sustainable human being, in the sense that my clothes last forever. Even if it is fast fashion, it will last forever. I rarely throw away clothes, but moving away from the personal. Coming back to the research, when we did this research, we actually, let me take this out in front of me. We actually asked youngsters how comfortable are they with buying second-hand clothing, and you won't believe. I'll just share with you some of the findings. I just have it with me. Second-hand is a big no-no with the male youth. Almost 60 to 75% never take hand me downs from friends. I don't know if you've taken borrowed clothing from friends. For special occasions, yes, maybe some people will do. Many would do, but on a day to day wearing basis, I don't think many would do. The findings of our research were that the traditional system of using second hand within family continues strong, with 51.85% going for it. Then again, repairs. I think in our Indian households, I think repair is pretty common. And when it comes to repairs, what the research threw up was that, repairs too continue strong, either with the help of a local tailor. Now, that's a pretty recent thing, and I wasn't surprised, because how many homes have a sewing machine today? I've not had a sewing machine forever in my. I've never had it anywhere with me. But the sewing machine was a huge fixture in our home as a kid. I think most of us, my generation, your generation, would have seen the sewing machine. We've seen the sewing machine at our home. So now, but what is more common now is after every society that we stay in, outside or within the premises, there is usually an old man sitting with the machine, and instead of hand not moving it with hand, the way it was done earlier, they use the treadle system. I think that's the word. And but they are stitching away. Very interesting is that repairs continue even at a brand store. 44.4% said that, but I don't know how many brands they give you that service. Wherein, okay, if you're buying, especially any if you're buying a dress, an Indian wear like a salwar, a kurta, or if you're buying denims, is when they'll say, okay, ma'am, we will cut it to the length that you want, or fit it to your size, a kurti or a kurta. That is there. But will if I say I have some buttons drop off, or maybe I get a, I've pulled my shirt somewhere and there's a, the stitch is opened, I'm sure it's going to lie even in my almirah forever till I either dump it away somewhere or I give it to I think of going to the local tailor, giving it to the local tailor and telling him, "Ki bhai, please darn it for me." I don't know how many brands are doing that. Then, what is interesting is that the traditional way of repair reuse among female youths continues strong. Again, often at the local tailor, 70.37%, and within female youth also, second hand is definitely not in, with almost 52 to 64% never going for swap groups, online stores, or physical stores. So when you talk about research, I think it's very important to know what the youth is thinking about. Then again, so I could go on with the findings. I've got this whole list in front of me, but what I'm saying is that research is what gives you an insight into, a deeper insight into the core issues that you may be looking at. So that is why I think it's important that we do the research that we need to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. For my videos or these podcast conversations, I go deep into the research,
Right.
whatever required for this particular need, but I go deep into it, and I have so many like things popping up there which I have never thought about. And now, as
Exactly.
you're sharing the research results, I was like shocked to know that people are doing all these things, and they're
Yes.
completely accepting the other way of working. But that other way is the regular way, like a generation ago. For me, from my childhood, it's a normal thing to repair my own garments. And I
Yes.
have seen, as you were mentioning, I've seen my mom had a machine at home and she used to stitch garments
Stitch.
for me. Yeah, for
Yes.
me and
I
my
have
dog.
worn.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, she
yes.
used to do that.
Yes.
I still have a machine in my house. After college, I never left a machine. I keep doing whenever possible.
Oh,
I have
that's
a
so
machine.
nice. Oh,
And
that's so nice. I don't.
my daughter is growing up seeing me do the machine
That's
stitching.
wonderful. That's wonderful. My sister does it. I don't. I
Yeah.
have been bad. I've been very bad at it. So, she used to bribe me that I will wear this and this of yours and I'll stitch this for you. So that's how the equation worked when we were in college.
Oh, wow. That's a smart way. And coming to our listeners, they are creatives or consumers trying to learn more. How can
Right.
fashion media support ethical change and help people make informed decisions?
Media, has a very, very strong role to play. I'll give you an example. Again, it's on a very personal note. I write this column for a local newspaper in the Northeast, which is called the Assam Tribune. My column more often than not talks about the issues that we are discussing right now. And whenever I'm in Guwahati, at least I've had two or three people come and tell me that it has helped them in some way or the other. And today, I think with social media, with your Insta, your reels, your podcasts, like a whole new world out there. I think people like you who do these podcasts, it's very important to talk about why it is important. For instance, I had once written about, it was a concept I had picked up from, I think it was some country, was it Australia, I can't recollect now. If individuals could just make a new year resolution not to buy more than 3 to 5 clothes in a year. If you open your closet, we've moved. I remember as kids, the new clothes that came in were mostly birthdays, Diwali, or if we were traveling. So mostly to my grandmother's place. So if we were going, then of course again, so 3 4 dresses then, or if there was a wedding, it was always occasion wear. And it is, if it's a birthday, it's not that I'm going and buying something bling or something glitzy or something, or it was not something that I was even buying a matching pair of footwear with that, or a coordinated handbag to go with it. No, it was just one frock, maybe two max, at least in an average middle class home. Today, how many clothes do we buy? Every year, every month, some maybe every week. I think every household, there are parcels being delivered, at least two to three every day, one of which is clothing. We need to put a stop to that. We need to make our wardrobes work for us. And and it is the media is, I don't think there'll be people writing to say how to go about this and how to go about that. But I think small reels, catchy reels, podcasts, I think these are the things that will catch the attention of the youth, which will catch the attention of people to be able to shift. And it is not just about what to wear, how to wear, when to wear, and all of that. That is influencers big time. I think it is very important also to be able to see the fabric and say that, to be able to, for consumers to be able to go at a shop and ask, is this cotton? What kind of labor was used to make this shirt? Every clothing item has a story to tell. Everything that you wear, this stole that I'm wearing has a story to tell. I got this from a sustainability conference that was happening in Baroda some 6 7 years back. The weaver who I bought it from, he that was the first time I also ever heard about the Tangalia stitch. I hope I've got the pronunciation right. And he said that while he's weaving, it's just one thread which he twists and weaves into the fabric again. I'll show it to you up front to give this bead like effect. Okay. Where are the stories today? What do our hang tags tell us? That when we go and buy a dress, what does the hang tag of your dress tell you? It will tell you where it is made. It will tell you, give you some percentage composition of the fabric. Does it talk about the factory where it was made? Does it talk about the kind of colors that were used? Does it talk about the amount of water it consumed? I think these are the stories. It is not just for the media. You cannot hold the media responsible for everything. Just cannot be the role of the media to be telling the people. It is, again, as I said, it has to be a collaborative effort. Everybody has to tell the story, and it has to be going out to all ears, to all, because there's so much noise out there. And who finally kind of cuts through that noise and is able to tell the consumer, that is what will have an impact going forward. And that's where the role of the media also comes in.
I like your idea of collaborative changes coming through from the consumer and the media. That is lovely. And as you were
And
correct,
the industry.
yes,
Yes.
and the industry. And
Right.
as you correctly saying earlier, I also grew up buying only 2 3 times a year the clothes. So occasional wear, as you were saying.
Yeah.
And nowadays everybody has access to so much of clothing just on the fingertips, so they just buy whenever they feel like. Not even I'll buy only after a month, or I have this so I'll buy. It's not even like that. If they see some advertisement and they like and they know they can afford it, they just buy it. That's
It's
the
and
kind
it's not just about clothing. It's about footwear. It's about bags. It's about makeup. It's about just about everywhere.
of.
It's about what you buy for the how the just about everywhere.
Oh yes, oh yes. Everything is bought like that.
Yes,
I
yes.
generally address these kind of issues on my YouTube. Tell people how to control all that, how to manage your wardrobe, how to buy things in a reasonable and conscious manner. And as you were mentioning about second-hand clothes and swapping and all that, I think this generation is catching up with that. And I always took second-hand clothes, even if my friend's brother has some sweater. I'm like, yeah, why not? I'll take it because it fits me and I like the color and it's warm, so I'll take it. I used to be like that all the time, like from my childhood. That's how I've grown up. So now people have different mindsets. Yeah, I think everybody need to change their mindset. So now let's talk about sustainability in fashion. What does true sustainability mean to you? What's often misunderstood?
It's an interesting question. See, what is misunderstood is not seen. So for me as a layperson, if I go and buy a T-shirt, say from the local market, could be a Sarojini Nagar or wherever. Do I question whether this is sustainable? No, I just go and buy it because I like it. It's use and throw, works my purpose. So where is sustainability for all the textfash.com that I may be doing? I am saying this from a very, very personal perspective because I think that's what drives home the message loud and clear is that sustainability to me would be when COVID was happening. What happened? The waters were and the rivers were flowing clean, the air was clean, human beings were not at work. So the planet had learned to rebreathe again. And therefore we were also breathing fresh air. Is it possible to arrive at those kind of levels again? No, we don't want COVID. But without COVID, can we do that? Can we afford to do that? No. So how do we go about it? It will just not be for the fashion industry. I think it is across industry, across the spectrum of industries. Fashion is of course a key component. We need to act, you know, as and act in the right direction, wherein we talk about, not just talk about, wherein policies are formulated, implemented, and perhaps even penalized if industries do not follow the norm, if individuals do not follow the norm. It's not going to be easy. Again, as I said, it has to be collaborative. People, industry, policymakers, government, everyone will have to come together to ensure that there is no greenwashing. And until and unless this well rounded, it's almost utopia. I, I don't entirely see it happening in my lifetime because for the planet to survive, for us to be able to leave a greener planet, we are on course to miss the 2030 target, the fashion industry. So, how? I don't have the answers. Sustainability to me means fresh air, happy weavers, no farmer suicides, organic fields, organic produce, so much more. But where are we? And to be able to be truly sustainable, go green, the list is huge, humongous when you think about it. But I think every step counts. You have to be optimistic, do your own bit as a consumer, as an industry person, and somewhere along the line, every drop counts, as I said earlier. Every drop will count. So That's what we need to do.
That's a lovely way you have put it out there. And I also loved COVID time. I don't like the COVID, but the
Mhm.
environment and everything, I loved it. Such a
Mm.
peaceful time it was.
I know,
At
I
the
know.
same time, it was chaotic, but
Yeah,
around the surroundings, environment wise, it was
yeah,
peaceful.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of talk around buzzwords like eco friendly or green, because I also generally talk about eco friendly things. And you just mentioned about certain words like that. How can readers spot greenwashing? Are there red flags they should watch out for?
When you go and buy something organic, they will say 100% organic. But do you know, for any product, anything to be 100% organic, it is not just the final product that they say that, okay, we've used eco-friendly colors or we've done this and we've done that, so it is organic. No, it starts from the seed, it starts from the soil. Every process, from the soil, from the water, the way it is used, the labor that is being done, are they be getting the right wages? The dyeing, are they using colors that will not harm the planet? The people who are weaving, stitching, spinning, the entire life cycle of the product, the entire value chain of that product needs to be 100% organic. For a lay consumer, it's going to be difficult because, as I said, that storytelling is still not being done. And if it is being done, it is being done in a very piecemeal way. That they will say organic, but maybe the soil that the cotton was cultivated on was not exactly organic. Maybe the colors that were being used, that the colors that were used to dye the fabric were not entirely organic. It is not easy to for any consumer to to be able to spot where is the greenwashing being done. The consumer needs to start asking these questions. Say, for instance, I go to a fashion store and I ask these questions, as I said earlier. The shop floor personnel will in all likelihood, lead me to his team lead. The team lead will say, ma'am, I'll try to get you answers to these questions. But do you know what will happen when you start asking these questions? The brands will be compelled to write that story. The brands will be compelled to answer these questions. The brands are doing their bit. Everybody's trying something or the other. Okay, some are falling by the wayside, some are failing by the wayside. That's okay. All that will happen. That's how the ecosystem works. But the biggest push will come from the consumers. The minute you start asking questions is when you are compelling the brand to ensure that they give the products that the consumer is asking for. The consumer is king. The consumer will always be king. So the consumer as king has the power to lead the change. But is the consumer aware enough to lead that change? I think that's where podcasts like yours come into play, where they force the people to think. And today's youth, today's consumer, I think, is a very, very discerning consumer. They understand fashion, they understand greenwashing. They are beginning to understand greenwashing in all its connotations. They are beginning to understand sustainability with all its connotations. Now they need to start asking questions. I'll be very happy to see a tide, maybe not likely to happen, but once they start asking these questions is when the people who are making your clothes will start ensuring that they build sustainability into their ecosystem. That that greenwashing will also be curbed. That is just one of the ways that could be done. So again, I come back to the importance of storytelling. When you ask questions, brands will write the story. They are writing a story, but right now it's a very nice, pretty picture that has been painted. Oh, from the fields, from here, from there, from our craft. They are weaving in craftspeople into the story. What they are not weaving in is what were the wages of that craftsperson? What was the kind of dye that you used? Where did you get the cotton from? If this is a blend, is the blend planet friendly? The more questions you ask and the more people ask, is the pressure will be stronger on the brands, on the manufacturers. to ensure that they make products, that are planet friendly. Of course, a whole lot of policies are being worked out, will be implemented, uh, and all of that. It will be a while, and till those policies come into play, please look back into the repair, reuse, recycle fashion the way our parents and grandparents used to do. A classic example was of the t-shirt. It is first worn as a t-shirt, then it is used as a dusting cloth, then it is used as a mop till it is all into shreds and can be used no longer, and it goes into the dustbin. I think we need to go back to that system. Or we give it to recyclers. Every residential society makes it bound in that this is where you give your clothes, old clothes. This is where then there is a recycler in town who comes and collects those old clothes. You have to create that ecosystem. And it is the consumers, let me tell you, it is the consumers, by asking questions, by pushing for it, who can drive the change they want. Because otherwise it's going to be a very tough call. The industry alone cannot do it. They have profitability also to think about. You cannot take away profitability from them, but then it's a multi-edged sword. You do this, you get a slash there. You do that, this is where it's happening. So it has to be collaborative. It has to be where people, industry, everybody needs to come together, work out, start small. I'm sure we'll reach somewhere, but we need to start at least.
I totally agree with you on everything. In one of my conversations with one of the guests, he was saying industry, even if they want to change the way they work towards the sustainability, they have to change whole system of their business, which is going
Yes.
on for so many centuries. They just have to change it, and it becomes difficult to teach each and every person in the whole system. So that's why they are hesitating to go to the new system.
What happened when computers came into the system? What
Mm,
happened when the cell phone came? When
yeah,
computers came, everybody had to learn. I remember learning to work on the computer. It was damn hard, but we learned it.
I feel when the change happens, people slowly automatically get
Yes,
used to.
the naysayers will always be there.
Yeah,
The
agreed.
naysayers will always be there, but then you need to move on.
Yes.
Change is life. Change is what determines flux is all. You cannot avoid that.
Yeah, and as you were saying, consumer is the main person who needs to ask the questions, who needs to push the things so that everybody starts thinking. The
Right.
brands or people who are making the clothes or any product, they will start thinking when you demand for a better product. So I totally agree with you on that. You were talking about storytelling and everything. As a storyteller, what stories do you think are missing from mainstream fashion conversations today?
The back end, the dyers, again, the weavers. They are they are the people I always talk about. The dyers, the thread makers, the spinners, the yarn makers, the farmers, the fields. Where does the water come from? What's happening to the water? These are the stories that need to be written about. And these are the stories that actually determine the end product. Because these are the people who comprise a very critical part of of the storytelling that needs to be done today. We are talking about brands, we are talking about stores, we are talking about retail, all of it. But we really need to talk about the people behind it all. The when we talk about sustainability, as you said, I think I need to go to that small recycler somewhere in Panipat and ask him what his challenges are. I need to go to Kolkata, that place where I'm forgetting the name, where they make wholesale garments and they supply to the small retailers in every small and town and city of India. I met them, say, around 4 years back. I met them when I had gone to Calcutta. When I asked them about sustainability, again, this is something I've written many times. When I asked them about trends, they had heard of sustainability, but they said some of them had to close down shop for a while because of the state government policies. wherein a lot of the effluents were going into the water body. They said that they've put the machinery to ensure that the effluents from the dying units. So he said, what trends? What sustainability? We decide, we sit down together and we decide which garment, which fabric to use, what kind of embroidery should we do, what kind of pattern should we make. We decide on that design, and then all of us give our own personal touches to it. And then we go and look for clients in the hundreds and thousands of stores all over the country. But what is sustainability? We have to make our ends meet. You know what I was talking about, profitability. There's no one talking to us about that. Who's talking to us about that? We don't know. These are the type of stories that need to be told. These are where the story, these places are where the stories are, and these are the people we need to talk to for the stories, need to be guided when it comes to following the sustainable path. When I'm talking about profitability, when I'm talking about, it's their source of income. When this huge group of people, they sit down together to decide on the trends, to decide on the kind of embroidery, the cuts, the patterns, and all of that. They are an industry. They are wholesale suppliers to every small store, fashion store in every village and town or mofussil town in the country. Maybe many of them. You think they want to talk about sustainability? The competition is tough. It's just not happening there. If there are people in Gujarat who are making, there are people in the south who are making clothes. So the India is a huge population. Yes, the market is there, but at the same time, you need to be able to capture that market. So when this person is in the business of making these clothes, do you think he has the time to sit down and work out sustainability? He is looking for profits. But that is where my story is. But am I talking about it all? Not much. Once somebody writes about it, it's like a cascading effect. You write about it, somebody reads about it, somebody else again writes about it. It comes to the notice of the powers that be, so on and so forth. Things start moving. Now imagine somewhere in a Mofussil town, if I have bought a cloth, if I have bought a Baba set for my little child, and I ask the shopkeeper, what fabric is this? He will say pure cotton. I said, did the farmer was the farmer paid well? He'll think, are you a moron? You come here, you want to buy this thing, buy, go. You don't want to buy, leave it, go. I'm sure he's going to talk about it with his friends. And there was this lady, she came and she was asking me these questions. How do I know these questions? How do I know these? How do I know what is she asking? Now, suppose after that, 20 women go to the same shop asking the same questions. Won't that shopkeeper be compelled to ask the next time that this person from Kolkata takes his wares there, hello, can you give me the story to this? Do you think that's how it would work? Maybe, maybe not. But these are the stories that need to be written about the challenges that each and every cog of this huge machinery that makes the textile fashion industry, how each and every cog operates, works, challenges. Those are the stories I think that need to be written about. We are trying to do that, but not always possible.
The story you said right now, many people going and asking that shopkeeper will force him to understand the story and give you the story. And you have covered industry players and lesser known change makers. What are some inspiring examples of people or brands quietly doing powerful work?
There was this person, a weaver I met. Again, it's a story I have said often. I was at a craft exhibition and I looked at this beautiful dupatta. It was a Bethani. I said, this is so beautiful. So this fellow looks at me and tells me, everybody comes and tells me it is so beautiful, but nobody is buying it. Is beautiful going to feed my stomach? Is beautiful going to feed my family? I've come all the way from such and such. I don't remember which place. I have not, sold much. They are surviving against odds, and it is not just the story of one weaver. It is the story of countless of them. It is the tragedy of families that were working on a particular craft for generations but had to abandon There were no takers for their products. I think those are the powerful stories. There are some very small brands which are doing a lot of good work. They are almost like a cottage industry. They are working out of their homes. They are working with a select group of people. But when you dig deeper, there are issues for sure. But I think, as I said, it would be utopia if there were no issues. There's another example that comes to my mind. There was this guy had done this story long time back. He designed how a machine could embroider in a certain way, and he worked on that on that embroidery machine for years, and he faced this problem every time. And then he decided, since he had been working on that machinery for a very long time, he was able to work that snag out, which helped machine embroidery on a certain kind of fabric. So he could do that because, he was at it, he persisted with it. But the problem that he faced was when he did not get enough backers for his machinery. Thankfully, he did get it. Later on, he got the funding. These are the kind of stories that really inspire, and there are plenty. Then there is this lady somewhere in Rajasthan. She started a foundation, and I think I might be getting in touch with her. She started from a village, suffered a whole lot of abuses from the family. Out of necessity, she started, she gathered a group of women, and they started their own clothes, and they formed a cooperative, and they started selling to people. So these are small stories that are happening in a very small way in many nooks and corners of India. I think we need to discover these stories. It's very important. And through your podcast, I'm saying, if there are these people, if you're listening to me, please get in touch with me. I'd love to write about you.
That's lovely offer there. Guys, whoever are interested, please get in touch with Richa. And for students or young professionals entering the fashion media space, what should they keep in mind if they want to work with impact?
Go to where the stories are. You need to find the stories. You need to be aware. You need to know what is it. You need to understand the power of the pen to be, and to go where the stories are. Research, do your research, talk to people, get perspectives, understand the core issue, and then write about it. B2B fashion journalism needs young blood, needs people with passion, youngsters who understand the industry, who understand the workings of the industry, and would like to write about it and can write about it. It's very important to do that. So you have your NIFTs, you have your Pearls, you have your so many other institutes that are there, which are training you technically, but you need to go to the ground to really understand the issues and write about them. In our times, we didn't have access to all such institutions. Many of them were not even there. Today's, when communication is so easy, you have everything at your fingertip. Make use of the tools, work towards it. Write the stories that need to be written about, that should be written about. Don't rely on chat GPT. Definitely not. It's not going to give you the truth for sure.
Yeah, that's a lovely message there. And before we wrap up, we have a quick segment called Snappy Seconds. Short and
Oh,
fun. Just
mhm.
say the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready to go for it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, my first question is one word to describe the future of fashion.
Bright.
Okay, most overused buzzword in fashion.
These days it would be greenwashing.
Ah, yeah. Physical magazine or digital read?
I'd love my physical magazine in my hand. I'm
Oh,
so
me
sad
too.
to, yeah, I feel so sorry to see its decline.
Favorite ethical brand right now, if you have any?
No names, none. I can't.
Okay, okay, fair enough. A print you always love wearing.
I love all prints. I love the paisley. I love everything. I love everything. I am absolutely. I love all colors. There can be no color that I will not wear. There
Okay.
is no print that I will not wear.
Oh, lovely. What's more powerful, data or storytelling?
Without data, there is no storytelling.
That's a
Without
smart answer. I was like, I kept you in fix there, but you gave this. So there. So that's nice. Your go-to outfit on a busy day.
Jeans and white shirt.
Oh yes, I love that too. A textile you think we will talk more about in the future?
All are heritage textiles.
I agree with
All.
you.
It will not be fair to point out one or two. I think
Hmm.
each one that is handcrafted is the future.
Yeah. Sustainability in one sentence.
Pro people, pro
Mhm.
planet, pro
Okay.
profit.
Ah,
Until we
okay.
are able to build these together, we're not
Mhm.
going to move ahead.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much, Richa, for sharing not just your knowledge, but your heart with us. You have helped us understand how media, facts, and responsibility come together to shape a better fashion world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me with you.
To everyone listening, stay curious, ask better questions, and don't just follow trends, follow the truth. I am Arpita, and this is Style Made Sustainability. Until next time, grow gently, live consciously.